So today's episode will conclude our study on the subject of doubt. And then we're going to move into the phrase, follow me, in the New Testament. That's almost where we began when we took this new direction with our podcast. We're going to study and really look at, and I believe it'll be a great challenge and help to us as we really examine that invitation that Jesus extends to follow me, that whole idea of us taking our next step and being a true follower of Jesus Christ. But as we finish up today, the title is this: have doubts, don't tell anybody, right? The idea about doubt, I think, as I go back over the years of being a believer, I didn't grow up in church. And so around the age of 23, 24, I started getting involved in church after becoming a believer. And I just go back in my mind and think, and nobody really talks about doubt. You hear about, apologetics and ways to resolve doubt and the questions and the answers. And we're doing a lot of resources in that direction. But you just never really hear a lot of open dialogue in classes, small groups, and so forth. At least I haven't. Now, I know that's not the case for everyone, but I can only relate to my experience. But as I've talked about that, many people agree that, I've not really heard a lot talked about as far as doubt. And so it's kind of one of those subjects that is quiet because maybe doubt is taboo. It's considered a bad, ugly five-letter word. Big reasons because doubt is misunderstood. We don't many times understand what true doubt is, and therefore we don't talk about it because we feel ashamed, we feel embarrassed, we feel like we're going off into unbelief, and because of that misunderstanding, it keeps us silent. But we talked about doubt in our Zoom Bible study last week, and one of our young people that's on there made a comment as we were talking about doubt, and they said this: in order to really talk about doubt, you have to first admit that doubt to yourself. And I began to think about that, and I said, wow, that's very true. Many times we don't admit to ourselves that we're doubting because we feel like, one, we should be ashamed, and so we don't admit that we're doubting because it makes us feel guilty, ashamed, we're less of a Christian, all those things, even to ourselves. And so before we can even begin to talk about it and seek ways to remove it, we have to be willing to admit to ourselves that, yes, I am doubting in this area, or I am doubting God's existence, or I'm doubting God's goodness, or I'm doubting this area of Scripture, or the accuracy here, or I'm doubting the resurrection of Jesus Christ, or whatever it is. I'm doubting this circumstances that came in my life have caused me to doubt certain parts of God or His character or my Christian faith or whatever it is. And so that statement just stuck with me, and I wanted to share it on our last episode here as we just kind of bring it all together, because doubt is one of those silent subjects that I believe so strongly needs to be talked about. It needs to be dealt with, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more in detail. And so why would it be hard to admit that we're doubting to ourselves? Well, one, if we don't admit it, then we can keep it hidden. It's the idea, if I don't bring it up, even admit it to myself, somewhere I can suppress it down in my mind. I can suppress it way back there, and it won't show its ugly head, and I can just keep it back there, and it'll be fine. But we understand that it doesn't go away. We can suppress it, and we've talked in some of our previous episodes about the idea that doubt compounding upon doubt becomes a very major issue, and that's a big reason why many people may reject their faith, or their faith is just, all but destroyed because the foundation is destroyed because it just is hidden and it's never dealt with. We may have a hard time admitting it to ourselves because we would feel less of a Christian or less of a believer, and we don't want to feel that way. We want to feel like we're close to the Lord, or we're a good Christian, or we're, taking our next step, whatever it is, because it would make us feel ashamed or guilty. We just try to fight it off. I mean, how many times have you done that with doubt? And you just say, oh, there's a little bit of doubt in my mind, but no, I'm not going that way. No, I'm just going to put it down. And so we try to fight it off, stifle it, rather than handling it and dealing with it and admitting to ourselves, look, I'm struggling here. I'm having issues with this aspect. I'm not fully finding this in Scripture, and I'm hearing some people say yes and some people say no, and I don't know, or I'm struggling here with with this aspect of the person of Jesus Christ, or whatever it is. So if we don't admit it, then it can't be true, right? If we don't admit to ourselves the doubt, then the doubt cannot be true. And so that's another reason why we may keep it to ourselves. If we don't admit it, then God won't be disappointed in me. But we have to remember God already knows. He's not surprised. And maybe we don't want to admit it, because then if somebody asks me if I've ever doubted that, then I would have to admit to them that I have. And so I don't want to admit to myself. And so we just keep it suppressed. But I believe very strongly that we need to open up about doubt. It's not that I have doubts, don't tell anybody. It's I have doubts. I need to, one, admit it to myself, and then two, be willing to openly discuss and dialogue about the doubts that I have experienced in my life. Doubt is a huge hindrance that keeps people from being able to take their next step or be a true follower of Jesus Christ. It's that huge hindrance. And doubt is a reason why so many young people are rejecting their faith. I believe doubt is a huge part of that. And doubt comes in because areas of our faith are questioned, because we get around different teachings, philosophies, different situations, different religions. All of that begins to go in, and if we don't deal with that and handle it, then it can cause us to ultimately reject our faith. Think about this. When the world gives you or me or a person 10 reasons why not to believe, and you and I only have one reason to believe, where's the balance at? What's going to weigh out more? You see, you and I need, if the world's going to give 5 reasons why not to believe this, you and I need 6 reasons to believe it. And can I say this? There are plenty of reasons. The case for Christianity, or the case for Christ, is insurmountable. There's overwhelming or reasonable doubt, evidence beyond a reasonable doubt to the evidence, to the factuality of the Christian faith, to the fact that God exists, to the fact of Jesus Christ walking on this earth, to the fact that he was crucified, that he resurrected. There's just insurmountable evidence. And so their doubt can come from so many different areas. But the answers are there, whether they're in Scripture, whether they are through thinking and putting together pieces outside of Scripture. It's there. And so you and I need to search for those answers. And we need to take those answers to combat the reasons, or the quantity of reasons that the world would give us. And so Christianity is based on evidence and facts beyond a reasonable doubt. It's not based on speculation or theory, and so that is good. But in order to begin to talk about doubt, yes, we need to admit that we are doubting in whatever area it is, and then we need to be vulnerable. We need to allow ourselves to be vulnerable, and that will allow us to be authentic and really to take off the mask and the costume. Because so many times when we get in church and we get in our Sunday school or our small group, whatever it is, we just want everybody to think everything's great. And so people ask you how you're doing, and we just begin to go through the emotions when inside we're struggling. And we need to have places, people, situations, circumstances, forums, whatever it is, where we can openly discuss that. And so as we share our doubts, as we seek answers, remember that's the one thing. Is it okay to doubt? Absolutely, as long as you seek answers, as long as you give God the opportunity to give you the answer and yourself. So as we share our doubts, others can begin to relate. As you and I share our victories that we've achieved in those doubts, then other people will be encouraged to talk about their doubt and to seek answers with us, through us. And as we share our struggles, somebody else can open up and share, hey, I doubted the same way. But we need sessions. We need open forums and small groups. We need biblical material on this topic of doubt, because there's not a lot out there. You and I just need to take off the costume and be very transparent with other people. We need to have strong believers in our lives, mentors that you and I can look to and that we can open up to and be willing to talk and ask the hard questions of life and to discover those answers with them. So first, be willing to admit to yourself when you're experiencing doubt. That's the first step. I thought that was such a great truth. And remember, it's nothing to be ashamed of. Remember how Jesus dealt with John the Baptist when he doubted, tenderly, with compassion and with the goal to fix his faith, to find that error in his faith. Remember how Jesus dealt with Thomas. He was a realist. He wanted to see to believe, and so Jesus allowed him to see. Remember how he dealt with the leper who was questioning, did he have the power or not? And then the father who, you probably can, but you probably will not. He was doubting his compassion, how Jesus dealt very specific and tenderly with each situation. Doubt is not something to be embarrassed about, because doubt is a beautiful thing if it's dealt with, because resolved doubt can bring tremendous growth to our faith. Resolved doubt can allow you to take a giant step forward in your faith and in following Jesus Christ. So at this moment, take an inventory of your mind and see if there are not some areas maybe where you suppressed doubt. You threw it back there hoping it would go away, that you wouldn't think about it. I have stuff like that in my mind, where I said, I just don't want to deal with that right now. I heard that, and I'm not quite sure. God, you just didn't come through like I thought you should. And so I begin to question your character, your care, your love, whatever it is. And I throw it back there, but it's there. So take an inventory, meditate, maybe begin to write down some areas where you have questions or you have doubt. And then you can begin to seek answers for that. So target that doubt. Then admit that doubt, and then work to get answers in order to destroy that doubt. So let's learn to admit the doubt to ourselves so that you and I can actualize that potential of seeing the resolved doubt grow our faith.